rarely should we go into a presentation just to receive information, and especially executives. Like, they go into meetings either to remove roadblocks, to help make a decision, right? There's always some sort of action that needs to happen. And so leading with that "so what" is going to be really, really critical, and they're going to respect you more for it. They're going to think of you as more strategic. And these are all, good things that will positively impact your career.
Welcome to Think Deeply, Speak Simply, the podcast that explores the art and science of business communication. Sponsored by Prezent, the AI-powered platform transforming the way professionals share ideas and tell their stories. And now, here's your host, Rajat Mishra, CEO of Prezent and passionate advocate for clear and impactful communications.
Presenting to senior leaders can feel like walking a tightrope. You've got one shot, limited time, and a high-stakes audience that might honestly decide your career. And it isn't just about what you say, it's about how you say it and when you deliver it. Do they prefer a brief pre-read before the meeting? Or do they want a 2-slide summary instead of a 20-slide deep dive? Are you meeting them where they are or forcing them to meet you where you are? As George Bernard Shaw said, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. It's not enough to just send the deck or hold the meeting. You have to ensure the message truly lands. And to do that, you need to understand your audience, especially when that audience is sitting in the C-suite. In this episode of Think Deeply, Speak Simply, we are joined by Lorraine Lee, LinkedIn top voice with over 300,000 followers and the author of Unforgettable Presence. She has made a career out of helping people become more effective and impactful communicators. Lorraine shares tactical insights on how to customize your content and your delivery style for senior leaders, and why a one-deck-fits-all approach is a fast track to being ignored. Lorraine, welcome to Think Deeply, Speak Simply. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
All right, Lorraine, let's get started with executive communication. So it almost feels like its own language, right? So why is communicating to senior executives so different from other types of communication?
I feel like you named so many good reasons in your introduction. It's hard, right? It is very different. And I think, for me, when I think about communicating to executives, one of the things that I think about first is their lack of time. They have so many things going on, so many things that they're thinking about, people they have to manage, goals they have to hit. And so when you communicate with them, you have to make sure that it's really going to hit because, again, they don't have very much time for you to get your point across. And, in addition, related to that, the context switching is key. So they're not only lacking time, but they're jumping from thing to thing to thing. So you really have to be precise. You have to help them get up to speed quickly and then get to the point quickly.
So in all the people you've trained and spoken with, Lorraine, what are some of the common mistakes people make when they present to executives?
Well, I definitely made one of the most common mistakes that people make. And so I worked at a presentation platform previously, and I had the chance to present to the CEO my new strategy for the team. And I was so excited. I have this really nice presentation laid out. I practiced a ton, and I walk into the meeting and I'm getting ready to go through the whole deck. And just a few minutes in, I start getting interrupted. The CEO has a ton of questions for me. And so, I thought it was going to be, I present my presentation and then they're going to ask questions afterwards. And it's going to be a little bit more of that one-way conversation. I talk, then you talk. But I think what people forget is that executives, they want that Q&A. They want that back and forth. So it doesn't mean if you're interrupted that you're doing a bad job. It just means, again, time is limited. They're trying to get to the point and trying to understand what it is that you need from them or what the main point is. And so to prepare to be interrupted and to make it more of a dialogue rather than you just, expecting to give your 10 to 15 minute presentation with no interruptions.
I hear you, Lorraine. I remember in corporate America, I've had many presentations where I've got interrupted and you cannot tell them the answer is coming. You have to answer
Yeah.
their question, and that's one of the worst things you can do. So, what is the secret to cut through, right? What's the secret to cut through the noise and be effective? And you mentioned things like understanding your audience's preferences. So, I'd love to just learn more about that.
Yeah, I think, that's great advice. So it doesn't just apply for leadership. So anytime you communicate, it's always a good idea to understand your audience. But I think with executives, it's even more critical because they're all going to have different ways that they communicate. So I interviewed a lot of executives for my book, and one of them said, he's an executive at Zoom. One of them said, "Oh, well, I'm someone who really likes getting into the details, but I know my coworker, he really likes hearing things high level. So if I'm going to you and you like the details and I'm talking about high level, there's just going to be that automatic disconnect." So it's really important not just to understand, okay, what are your goals and how can I create content that speaks to your goals, but how can I actually present the content in a way, either during the session or even maybe before, that allows you to process and to digest in the way that you like to process information.
That's a great point. Usually you're presenting to groups, right, Lorraine? So what if there's a group where there's one exec that likes something high level and someone likes something more detailed? How do you present to that group?
I think it's about understanding who is going to be in the room ahead of time. So let's say there is someone who has a specific preference that they want to get information beforehand. I would personally, it's a high stakes situation. Like, I would personally prepare and make sure that that person has what they need. And there's going to always be kind of a balance and an ebb and flow in these meetings where, yeah, if someone is on two opposite sides of the spectrum, it's going to be hard to kind of appease both of them. But I think there are things that you can do where perhaps at the start of a slide, say the high level idea, and then you go into the weeds afterwards. So there's adjustments that you can make, but going to those executives, understanding how they like to receive the information, going to their executive assistants, I think is a great, pro tip, because the executives are so busy, they might not have time to tell you sort of their style. I think that's a really good strategy to make sure that you're as prepared as possible.
Yeah, love that pro tip. You're right. If you can make the exec assistants your best friends, you learn a lot about the execs. And
Exactly.
it's a key to success. You mentioned the power of pre-reads. Tell us a little bit more about what is a pre-read and how can our listeners use it in their executive meetings.
I love a pre-read. I am more introverted as well, so it's really helpful for me to have the information ahead of time. And so what a pre-read is you're essentially laying out what the person needs to know before going into the meeting. So giving them the context. I think so much of, a boring presentation, I guess you could say, is when you show up and you're sort of you're saying things that someone could have read more quickly, right? So a pre-read allows you to kind of set up the scene, again, provide that context, and so that everyone is coming into the meeting on the same page. And so that, again, like, that preparation is key. I feel like so many meetings, bad meetings and bad presentations come from a lack of preparation. So the pre-read is also a great tool for you to think more deeply as the presenter before entering the meeting, when you have to write out your ideas and be really concise and be really thoughtful about, okay, there's limited time here and I need to only include the key information. That's going to help you become a deeper thinker and also make the presentation during the live time that you have together, I think, a lot more impactful.
And I didn't think of that, Lorraine, but it's a great point. It not only helps the audience, but helps you prepare more. And think through your content. One things we've found sometimes is when you create pre-reads, execs are so busy, they don't read any of it, right? So do you have any pro tips on how do you make sure that some of that content gets consumed? Because I hear you, if someone reads the pre-read, it'll be a more effective meeting.
Yeah, I think it's sort of what we talked about before, where, okay, let's say they're well, hopefully if they know it's an important meeting, they're going to read the pre-read. But some people maybe they prefer a video summary and they want to listen to things on the go. So providing those different options for people, I think, is not a bad idea.
Yeah, love that. And then let's talk about making executive ready slides, because a lot of this is presentations. Any hot takes or tips you have for on the particular slide? What should people do and don't do to make sure execs can absorb it the best?
Yes, I have so many ideas for this. Okay, so first one is the headline of your slide. I feel like so many people miss this opportunity to convey something with a headline. So, for example, a common headline might be, okay, Q3 marketing results. How can we take that a step further? Need more marketing budget because of X, Y, and Z. That can be your headline, right? Like, what is the main point? So that if an executive does not read what is on the slide, at least by reading the headline, they have a sense of what you're about to talk about and what you want the takeaway to be. So I feel like headlines are a really missed opportunity. Again, and if executives are reading quickly because they're lacking time, the headline is going to be what jumps out to them. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing that I would say is too many of us try to cram too much information on one slide. So aim for 1 point per slide. And when you do that, you end up using fewer bullet points. You can add more visuals. It's just less cluttered on the screen. And so that way the executive can focus. And when you're speaking, they're not reading everything that's behind you. So that's the second thing I would say. And then the third one is leveraging visuals. So if you have a graph chart, for example, and I see many of these, right, in executive meetings because we want the data and all the hard numbers, add a visual, add an arrow, a highlight, something that indicates what should I be looking at? Like what is the story with this graph? Don't just place it on the slide, but what am I supposed to be looking at? So again, it's kind of a form of managing up within a presentation, right? Like making it as easy as possible for your quote unquote manager or the executive to understand what they're looking at and to minimize the mental load on their part.
Yeah. Can I just pull a thread on what you said about making things simple?
Yeah.
What tips do you have for people to make things simple so that their points can land better? Because like you said, we've all seen many decks. I know I've created some that have lots and lots of content on them, right? So how do we make things simple, and what is the power of focusing on less?
So to make things simple, I think one easy thing that you can do is practice your presentation ahead of time and show it to your manager, show it to cross-functional stakeholders, to perhaps a peer who does not have the context that you all have. And so getting that outside perspective, I think, is really helpful. I think, preparing for a presentation, it's a lot of work. A lot of us, I think, prepare on our own, like by ourselves, right? But we forget, we have to present it to other people. We need to see what they think. And so that, I know that's something that's helped me a lot in my sessions. Anytime, whether it's a smaller team meeting or a meeting with executives, I'll talk to my manager, I'll walk it through, and there will always be suggestions of things that I can change because that manager perhaps better understands what's important to the executive, has just been there longer, has more experience. And so I think getting that feedback is one really impactful way to help simplify things, remove the jargon, remove the things that aren't necessary, and then also clarify anything that might be confusing.
Super helpful. So what advice would you have, Lorraine, for someone who's trying to influence others without, overwhelming the audience?
If you're trying to influence someone without overwhelming, I think you want to lead with the so what. So for example, we did this research and it showed us X, Y, and Z. It's okay saying that, but instead, customer retention, it dropped 12%. And here's how we're solving for it. And again, I feel like it keeps going back to lack of time, get to the point, But executives will really appreciate and I think view you as more credible when you can make the connection to the so what. Rarely should we go into a presentation just to receive information, and especially executives, they go into meetings either to remove roadblocks, to help make a decision, right? There's always some sort of action that needs to happen. And so leading with that so what is going to be really, really critical, and they're going to respect you more for it. They're going to think of you as more strategic. And these are all, good things that will positively impact your career. The second thing I would say to build influence is, and we talk a lot about the content of the presentation, also be aware of how you're speaking. So again, just because the executive is short on time, this is a mistake I see often, an executive is short on time, and so you become more frantic, and you're like, oh, I gotta talk fast and get through this. make sure that you are still speaking calmly with confidence, that you are, pausing as needed, and you don't rush, right? But you still want to stay concise. So the way that you deliver the presentation as well can also really influence your influence.
Yeah. No, it's great because you're absolutely right. Sometimes when you have less time, we try to speak faster
I
instead
know,
of
yeah, it's
find the
natural.
essence. Instead of find the essence. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Mhm.
natural, like you said. So let's switch gears a little bit to AI.
Yeah.
AI is impacting every walk of life, including communication.
Mhm.
So, personally, Lorraine, what AI tools and do you use to create your content and create presentations? And also, I'm sure you use some in your book as well, right? So, what are some of your go-to tools for content and presentations?
I think AI is such a powerful tool to help us expand our presence, to help us become stronger presenters. And so, encourage everyone who's listening to not be afraid to use that. I think AI is really helpful for helping you tailor content based on what you know about the audience. But always remember, as we hear, is that with AI, you want to make sure that you have that human touch, that you incorporate the human taste, and not just take it for as it is. But I feel like AI is really wonderful for being that thought partner, and especially where I have found it helpful is for Q&A. So we didn't talk about it earlier, but one of the biggest things that people also forget to practice when they're presenting to executives is, oh, what's the Q&A that's likely to come my way? And so AI can be a really wonderful thought partner. I have this executive, this is their background, this is the topic that I'm speaking on. What hard questions might they ask me? And you can go back and forth with AI in practice. And so I think, yeah, just really wonderful as a thought partner, can help you come up with content ideas. If you're trying to think of a creative visual for something, they can make the visuals, they can give you ideas of what to look for. So I think it can really enhance our presentations and then also our public speaking skills as well.
I didn't think of that FAQ bit. That's a fascinating pro tip
Yeah,
because a
it's
lot
really
of time is
helpful.
spent on questions. So that's great. And what do you say to people, Lorraine, who are in the creative field
Mhm.
and who say that, look, I don't want to lose my personality, personal touch, and I don't want to use AI, or AI cannot do what I do. What is your message to them?
Yeah, creative field like designers, you mean?
Yeah, designers or even writers. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, writers too, yeah. I think it's what I said before about that human taste piece. I think AI can execute a lot of things, but there's just something, with the human mind in terms of creativity. And when you're a writer, like knowing the nuances of how to play with words and the punctuation and the pacing of a sentence, like all of that is nothing that AI can replace. And so AI, I think from a basic perspective, can like execute those things, but the nuance and touching on the emotional piece, I feel like that is very human centric. And so, again, like AI is a great companion, but should not be like the end all be all for these outputs that we have.
Yeah. I love that, Lorraine. And I love the word you use, taste, because we as
Mhm.
humans, we have taste and, like you said,
Yes.
nuance, and AI can execute and make us more efficient. Um, and but not replace kind of that human taste aspect,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I'm curious, what have you found? Obviously you're very, you use AI a lot with presentations, and what have you found most useful with it?
I mean, for us, we define it as two different things. One is efficiency. I think that use case is obvious. We can all do more in less time, and all the mundane tasks, like you said, the execution can be done. But what we are finding is where I think AI is truly transformative is to do things we didn't imagine possible. And like, for example, I would love to on LinkedIn be able to reply to
Ah,
all tens of thousands of connections that I have when they
yes.
post something about me, but it's just not possible. But maybe with a trained AI, you
Yeah.
can do that, right? So to me, I think the part that's going to really take AI to the next frontier is things that we didn't think possible would be possible,
Yeah.
and it'll just make the world a more effective and efficient place.
Yeah, I agree. It's exciting to see what will come, and a little scary, but exciting too.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Lorraine, let's move to the my favorite section of the
Yeah.
podcast, which is the quick fire. So, I
Oh,
have
okay.
5 questions for you that you
Yes.
haven't heard before, and
Correct.
I'm just gonna ask you the question, and the first phrase that comes to your mind, just let us know. Okay?
All right, I'm excited. Let's do it.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
All right. What's one word you would use to describe the art of communication?
Oh, clarity.
How is AI changing the way we communicate in a phrase or a sentence?
It's helping us communicate faster.
Okay. If you could give one piece of advice to someone preparing for a big presentation in a Fortune 2000 company, what would that piece of advice be?
Practice more than you think. When you are confident, you build the confidence through the practice, knowing your material, and that's when it comes across more naturally.
Great, great. Thank you. And when you think of your own life, Lorraine, what is something you wish you knew about business communication when you started your career?
I wish I knew how significant it could be in growing your career quickly. I started public speaking or really doing it with a lot of focus in 2021. And of course, we're always communicating in every day through business, but public speaking in particular, didn't do it until 2021. And wow, it's just had such an outsized impact on my career. And so I always like to encourage people, even though it's scary. I know it's scary. It also is very rewarding and can really take you far.
Awesome. Last question. What is the most common communication mistake you see people make when they're trying to communicate their ideas?
Gosh, not understanding, not knowing or understanding their audience.
Not understanding their audience. Thank you. Great, great answers, Lorraine. I love you use the word clarity. I can definitely see that in all your answers today. So that's awesome. So Lorraine, thank you so much for your insights today. In a world where attention is currency, tailoring your message to the minds that matter most is a competitive advantage. And as you reminded us, great communicators don't just talk, they anticipate, they adapt, and they deliver with clarity. This episode and all your advice today, Lorraine, is a cheat code to get heard at the top. So before we wrap up, Lorraine, any final thoughts for our listeners? And where can they connect with you to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, I'm excited for all your listeners to continue to refine their communication skills. It's the foundation of business, right? So you can never learn too much on this topic. You can find me on LinkedIn under Lorraine K. Lee. I have a weekly newsletter, Career Bites, that you can also subscribe to as well on my website. And then check out my book, Unforgettable Presence.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a great episode. Next week, we'll continue exploring the art of communication and leadership with another incredible guest. Until then, let's think deeply and speak simply. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Think Deeply, Speak Simply. This episode was brought to you by Prezent, your secret weapon for brilliant presentations. Visit Prezent.ai to transform how you communicate. Until next time, keep thinking deeply and speaking simply.